I always thought my life was perfect. I was a naive guy who dreamed of something unattainable. I was a man who created everything with his own hands. My name is Oliver Grace. I'm 38 years old, and I run one of the largest real estate companies in the city. Black Small Square, a house in a prestigious neighborhood. Black Small Square, a thriving business. Black Small Square, my beloved wife, Sarah. Black Small Square, two wonderful children, Lucas, 9 years old, and Sophie, 6 years old. I've always been a person who believes in family. What could be more important than family? What could be more valuable than a woman who was there for me during the most difficult moments of my life? I was sure, nothing. A morning that seemed ordinary. I woke up at 6:30 in the morning. As usual, I made a cup of coffee and went to the window. Lights slowly filled the spacious garden behind the house. Silence, peace, stability. This was what I had worked for years for. A few minutes later, Sarah came down to the kitchen. Black Small Square, dark wavy hair, perfectly styled. Black Small Square, black silk robe, the smell of expensive perfume. Black Small Square, the confident posture of a woman who knows her worth. I smiled. "Good morning, my love." She nodded, poured herself coffee automatically, and sat down at the table. I watched her. I always loved the little details. The way her lips moved when she thought about something, the way she stirred her coffee with a spoon, even if she didn't add sugar. But today something was different. She looked distant. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She looked up at me and smiled faintly. "No, it's fine. Just tired." I nodded. I believed her. I was an idiot. The first cracks. Sarah was silent during breakfast with the kids. She used to always joke around with Lucas and Sophie, planning our weekends together. Today, she was just eating toast and scrolling through her phone. Black Small Square 1. She gets a message and quickly closes it. Black Small Square 2. She puts her phone down when I look her way. Black Small Square 3. She looks too focused, reading something on her messenger. I wanted to ask, but I didn't. I wasn't the kind of man who would make a scene over every little sign. So I just continued eating breakfast, pretending not to notice. That was my first mistake. Small but important details. This morning, Sarah didn't ask me about work or my plans for the day. She was always curious. Not a word today. Black Small Square, she didn't hug me before she left. Black Small Square, she didn't even say goodbye. Black Small Square, she looked like she was already far away in her thoughts. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and convinced myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me, that nothing had changed. I kissed the kids goodbye, got in the car, and drove to work. A work day and an unexpected meeting. I was working in my office, going through documents, when the phone rang from my partner. "Oliver, I'm at Le Chateau for lunch, and I think I see Sarah here." I stopped, and what's so strange about that? She's not alone. She's with Nick Weston. My breath hitched. Nick Weston, my lawyer, my friend. I slowly put down my pen. Are they sitting together? Yes, and they look very close. I took a deep breath. My heart raced. "Can you take a picture?" I did. "I'll send it to you right now." My phone vibrated. I unlocked the screen and opened the photo. Sarah and Nick are sitting in a restaurant. He leaned closer, holding her hand. She didn't pull away. I stared at the photo for a long time, and then I slowly clicked the save button. I closed the photo and leaned back in my chair. My heart was pounding in my chest. Just one photo, and I already felt empty inside. I tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe they were just discussing legal matters. Maybe it's just a friendly meeting. But something deep down inside me was screaming that this was a lie. I could no longer ignore the signs. An unexpected call. My phone vibrated again. Sarah was calling me. I glanced at the screen. If this had been a normal day, I would have answered immediately. But today I already knew she was being dishonest with me. I only picked up the phone after the third ring. "Hello, my love. How is your day?" Her voice was as gentle as ever. I gritted my teeth. "I'm fine. How about you?" "Oh, I've been busy with the foundation. A few important meetings. I'm going home now. Will you be there soon?" I felt anger rising inside me. Important meetings? The foundation? What about dinner with Nick? Sarah? I took a deep breath to control myself. Yes, I'll be there soon. I'll see you at home. I hung up the phone. She had lied to me for the first time, openly and without shame. I had no right to trust her anymore. Step 1. Control her movement. I knew I couldn't just ask her directly about everything. If she was cheating, she would lie. I couldn't take any chances. I needed facts, not words. I opened my laptop and ordered a hidden GPS tracker, a small device that easily attaches under the seat of a car. With it, I can track her every move in real time. Returning home, when I walked into the house, Sarah was already in the kitchen, cooking dinner. The smell of spicy chicken filled the space, and a bottle of red wine was on the table. She looked as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't lied to me a few hours ago. I silently walked over and put my arm around her shoulders. She shuddered, only for a second, but that was enough. I could feel it. She no longer felt comfortable in my arms. Her phone, another sign. At dinner, Sarah was the same as always, cheerful, smiling, caring. But when she got a message, she didn't even look at the screen. She just quickly turned her phone upside down so that I wouldn't see. I drank my wine and watched her. She didn't even know that I had already started my own game, preparing for the surveillance. When she fell asleep, I went out to the garage and quietly, without unnecessary movements, attached the GPS tracker under her seat. I returned to the bedroom, lay down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. It was the first time in my life that I couldn't sleep because of my own wife. I didn't know what awaited me, but I was prepared for the worst. End of the chapter. I was no longer a man who blindly trusted. I became a man who sought the truth. And if that truth was painful, I would accept it. But before I acted, I had to gather all the evidence. Because when I strike, it will be devastating. The morning after suspicions, I woke up at 6 a.m. I looked at the woman sleeping next to me. Sarah lay with her back to me, her breathing even, her expression calm. The woman who had lied to me straight in the face yesterday. I slowly got out of bed and quietly left the room. Today I was starting a game in which I had no room for error. The first GPS check. I sat down at the table in my office, opened my laptop, and turned on the program that showed the location of Sarah's car. The dot on the map glowed right in our garage. Everything worked. Now, when she left home, I would know her every route, every stop, every maneuver. I closed my laptop and went to the kitchen. Breakfast with a fake wife. When Sarah came downstairs, she smiled as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, my love." "Good morning," I answered in an even voice. I stirred my coffee and watched her. Black small square phone was lying face down on the table. Black small square when it vibrated. She didn't even look at it. She just turned off the sound. Black small square she was calm, too calm. Even, she was a master of lies. But I already knew she was playing a game she couldn't win. I took a sip of my coffee and asked, "What are your plans for today?" She looked up. Her gaze froze for a second, and then she quickly returned to her role as a perfect wife. "Oh, today is going to be a long day. First a meeting at the foundation, then lunch with friends, and then maybe I'll go shopping." I smiled. "Buy yourself something nice." She relaxed and nodded. Another lie. Another trap. I didn't tell her I would know her every move. The surveillance begins. When Sarah left, I opened my laptop and looked at the map. The dot was moving. I launched the program and began to follow her route. Black small square at first she did go downtown, where her fund was located. Black small square, but she was there for no more than 15 minutes. Black small square, then her car abruptly changed direction and headed in a completely different direction from the city. I knew she didn't suspect me. She thought she was in complete control. She thought I knew nothing. She was wrong. The hotel. The first confirmation of the betrayal. Her car stopped outside a hotel in the city center. Le Montclair Hotel. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't a boutique, a shopping mall, or her foundation's office. It was a hotel. I picked up the phone and dialed the number. "James, I need help." The detective on the case is my friend James Blake, a former cop turned private investigator. He didn't ask too many questions. He understood. What do you need exactly? The Le Montclair Hotel. My wife parked there 20 minutes ago. Find out what she's doing there. James nodded curtly. I'm leaving now. I hung up the phone. My hands balled into fists. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't let myself boil over with anger. I had to control myself, because it wasn't time for the final blow. The photos that changed everything. Half an hour later, James texted me. I opened the attached files. Black small square, Sarah enters the hotel through back entrance. Black small square, a few minutes later, Nick Weston enters. Black small square, they check in at the front desk. Black small square, they check in for a few hours. I sat in my office, clutching my phone. She had made her choice, and now I would make mine. Cold calculation. I sat in my office, looking at the photos James had sent. Sarah and Nick, together in a hotel. They weren't even hiding. They were so sure I would never find out the truth. I put the phone down and took a slow breath. Anger boiled inside me, but I couldn't afford to act impulsively. I wouldn't make a mistake. I wouldn't make a fuss. I wouldn't yell at her when she got home. I would destroy her in a different way. Slowly, cold-bloodedly, mercilessly, blocking her finances. The first step was to cut off her access to the money. I opened my laptop and went into our joint accounts. Black small square transferred all the large sums to my personal accounts. Black small square blocked her credit cards. Black small square, I blocked access to online banking. Sarah loved to live luxuriously. Black small square, expensive boutiques. Black small square, jewelry. Black small square, beauty salons. Black small square, trips in expensive cars. She was used to spending my money without thinking about the consequences. Tomorrow, she would wake up in a different reality. I called my financial advisor, checked the transactions for the last 6 months, especially large amounts that were transferred without my consent. He confirmed that he would send me a report in the near future. I hung up the phone. That was just the beginning. Her return home. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Sarah returned. Black small square, perfect hair. Black small square, fresh lipstick. Black small square, a faint scent of perfume that she does not use at home. She looked impeccable. If I didn't know the truth, I would have thought she was just meeting friends. She smiled as if nothing had happened. Sorry it's so late. It's been a crazy day. I gave no sign that I knew the truth. I nodded and said in a calm voice, "You know I trust you." She paused for a second. Her eyes widened a little, but she quickly regained control. "I appreciate that, my love." I smiled. Tomorrow she'll learn that trust isn't about her. The first cracks in her world. The next morning, I got up before her. I went into her office, opened my laptop, and checked her transactions. She tried to withdraw money 4 times. Black small square declined. Black small square card blocked. Black small square no access. I sat down in a chair and waited. 20 minutes later, she came running into the office, phone in hand. "Oliver, what's going on?" I looked up. "What exactly, honey?" She pursed her lips nervously. "My cards aren't working. The bank says all my accounts are blocked. Does this have anything to do with you?" I pretended to be surprised. "Oh, seriously? There must be some kind of technical problem. Do you want me to look into it?" She tried to smile, but I could already see the panic in her eyes. "Yes, if you can." I nodded. "Sure, but I have important meetings today. I think I'll figure it out tomorrow or the day after." Her hands clenched into fists. She knew. She understood. This is not a technical problem. It's me, breaking up with Nick. I opened my phone and looked at the correspondence that James sent me. Conversation between Sarah and Nick. Red circle Sarah. "My cards are not working. All the accounts are blocked. Can you help?" Red circle Nick. "What? How are they blocked? What? You don't have your own account." Red circle Sarah. "You know it was all through Oliver. I thought it would never happen." Red circle Nick. "Listen, I have my own problems right now. I can't just take over and start paying for everything for you." Red circle Sarah. "Are you serious?" Red circle Nick. You said yourself that everything would be without problems, that he would never find out anything. So what now? I smiled. Her lover is not ready to drag her financially. Her perfect plan began to fall apart. The uncertainty in her eyes. Sarah walked around the kitchen, her phone clutched in her hand. I sat at the table, calmly drinking my coffee, watching her nervous movements. She wasn't used to being out of control. Black small square, she was always in control. Black small square, she thought she had it all figured out. Black small square, she was sure I would always remain blind and naive. Now her world was starting to crack. I noticed her looking at her phone again. Was she waiting for a response from Nick? He hadn't texted her in hours. Do you know why, Sarah? Because he won't save you. Leak. Public humiliation. Sarah didn't just love money. She lived for her reputation. Black small square high society parties. Black small square interviews with journalists. Black small square charity projects that were more for status than for real help. So the next blow had to be on her image. I met with my PR manager and gave him clear instructions. I want information to leak to the media. What exactly? I opened my phone and showed him a photo. Black small square Sarah and Nick entered the hotel through the back entrance. Black small square, they check in at the reception. Black small square, they spent a few hours there. That was enough to blow her name up. The PR manager just nodded. Expect the first articles in the near future. Her first panic. 2 days later, the internet exploded. Red Circle businessman Oliver Grace's wife spotted at the hotel with his lawyer. Red Circle, Sarah Grace's double life. Socialite or traitor? Red Circle, the Grace scandal. New details. I was sitting in my office, scanning the headlines, when I heard a loud bang on the door. Sarah burst in, her face burning with anger. It's you. I looked at her calmly. What did I do, my love? She threw the phone on the table. A news story flashed on the screen. You set me up. I pretended to be surprised. You put yourself in this situation. She trembled with rage. You're destroying me, Oliver. Why? I stood up and slowly walked over to her. I looked straight into her eyes. Did you think you could betray me and get away with it? She didn't answer. Her hands clenched into fists again. You're pathetic. I smiled. Maybe, but at least I'm not a traitor. Breaking with society. Her phone rang nonstop. Black small square, her friends no longer wanted to talk to her. Black small square, the foundation began to lose sponsors. Black small square journalists were trying to find out the details. What she had built for years was crumbling in a matter of days. She tried to contact Nick, but he had disappeared, too. He didn't need a toxic woman whose reputation was falling apart. He had simply abandoned her. She was left alone with her own downfall. And me? I had only just begun. Sarah's broken voice. The next morning, she didn't look like the confident woman she had been a week ago. Black small square dark circles under her eyes. Black small square tousled hair. Black small square phone that kept ringing, but she didn't answer. She had lost the support of her friends, her reputation, and her money. Now it was time to take her children away from her. I calmly placed the envelope of documents in front of her. She looked at me with concern. What is this? I opened the file and took out the divorce petition and the application for full custody. Her lips trembled. You can't do this, Oliver. I smiled. I can, and I will. She grabbed the documents, flipped through them, her eyes wide. No, this is impossible. The court will never take my children away. I crossed my arms. Oh, Sarah, how wrong you are. My trump cards. How I will win her children back. I took care of the evidence of her immoral behavior in advance. Pushpin the nanny's testimony. She confirmed that Sarah constantly left the children at home while she went on business trips. Pushpin expenses. Bank statements showed that the money that should have gone to the children was spent on her lover. Pushpin private detective reports. Photos and videos of her numerous meetings with Nick, which refuted all her excuses. Pushpin public scandal. Articles in the press prepared the ground for a court decision. Pushpin evidence of her lies. Transcripts of phone calls and correspondence with Nick, where she discussed a plan to leave me with nothing. I gave these materials to my lawyers. They said only one thing. She has no chance of winning this case. Court appearance. Wife's broken voice. On the day of the trial, Sarah looked like she was about to faint. Black small square, she bit her lip nervously. Black small square, her hands were shaking. Black small square, she was no longer the confident woman who had manipulated me for years. She thought she would get through this with minimal losses. She was wrong. The judge reviewed the documents, listened to witness statements, financial statements, photos, and videos. Sarah tried to defend herself. It's not true. It's all false. He wants to destroy me. But the judge saw the truth. He looked at me. Mr. Grace, you filed for full custody of the children. Are you sure about your decision? I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I will not let my children stay with a woman who used them for her own gain. Sarah sobbed. Her last defense collapsed. The final verdict. 2 hours later, the court issued its decision. Black small square, the children stay with me. Black small square, Sarah is entitled to minimal visitation, provided her behavior is controlled. Black small square, she is obligated to pay child support. Her face turned chalk white. No, this can't be true. I looked at her. For the first time in years, I felt neither anger nor pain, only pleasure. I leaned over and whispered, "You made this choice." She cried, throwing her out of the house. The next day, she packed her things. Black small square, the rain was pouring. Black small square, she was standing on the porch with a suitcase. Black small square, the children were inside. They didn't want to say goodbye. I stood in the doorway, looking at her. She was trying to pull herself together. She was trying to say something that would stop it, but she couldn't change anything anymore. Do you hate me? I was silent for a long time. Then I answered, no, you're not even worth hating anymore. I closed the door. She was left in the rain, alone, without family, without money, without a future. Loneliness in a cheap motel. Sarah was a nobody. Black small square, homeless. Black small square, childrenless. Black small square, moneyless. Her old friends no longer returned her calls. Nick was gone. He didn't answer her messages. He didn't pick up the phone. He used her up and threw her away like trash. Her last refuge was a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. Dirty room, broken shower, hard mattress. This was her new home. The final financial blow. I could have stopped. I could have just left her there in her own hell. But no, she planned to destroy me. So I'm going to make sure she never gets up. Bankruptcy. I used my legal connections to start an investigation into her financial shenanigans. Black small square, her foundation's documents were in disarray. Black small square, expenses exceeded income. Black small square, several large, some simply disappeared without a trace. This was enough to open a case of financial fraud. When she was summoned to the tax office, she was shocked. What does this mean? Black small square, her accounts were frozen. Black small square, she was facing a fine of many thousands. Black small square, her foundation was officially closed. She tried to fight. She ran to lawyers. But no one wanted to help her. She was a poison name in the city. Her former friends didn't just turn away from her. They rejoiced at her downfall. A beggar's life. She sold her expensive bags and jewelry to rent a room in a cheap hostel. Black small square, she tried to find a job, but was refused everywhere. Black small square, she was left with nothing. One day I got a message from James. Black small square, a photo of Sarah in the supermarket. Black small square, she buys the cheapest products. Black small square, she looks tired, worn out, like a shadow of herself. I stared at this photo for a long time, and I felt nothing. She got what she deserved. Her last attempt to come back. A month later, she reappeared. Black small square, she was waiting for me outside the office. Black small square, her eyes were red with tears. Black small square, she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. I left the building, stopped in front of her. She looked into my eyes and whispered, "Oliver, I made a mistake. I was silent. Please, give me a chance. Give me at least some money. I can't live like this." I looked at her, and I couldn't see the woman I once loved anymore. Before me stood a pitiful, broken person. I slowly leaned down and said quietly, Sarah, you got what you deserved. She sobbed. Please? I smiled. I can't see you anymore. You don't exist to me. I turned and walked away. She was left there, standing in the cold wind, alone, forever, a world without Sarah. The house became quiet. Black small square, no late calls. Black small square, no excuses. No lies. Black small square, no secret meetings behind my back. I no longer woke up at night with suspicions. I no longer asked myself, what is she hiding? Sarah was gone from my life. But something inside told me this is not the end yet. Children who no longer ask about their mother. Lucas and Sophie initially asked when their mother would return. I didn't know what to tell them. Black small square, did she leave because she made the wrong choice? Black small square, can she no longer be a part of our lives? Black small square, did she simply not want this life? Over time, they stopped asking about her. They got used to it, like me. But every time I saw their eyes, I knew I would never let them be betrayed again. A career on the rise. I immersed myself in business. Work became my salvation. Black small square, I signed the biggest deals in the company's history. Black small square, my fortune doubled. Black small square, I no longer had a shadow to prevent me from moving forward. But every night, when I was left alone in the big house, I knew that something was not yet finished. Sarah was not someone who could be simply erased from the world, and I was sure that sooner or later she would return, encounter with the past. One day, when I picked up the children from school, I noticed her, a woman standing by her car, holding her son's hand, Anna Carter. We had known each other for years. She smiled when she saw me. Oliver, is that really you? I nodded. Hi, Anna. She didn't look like Sarah at all. Black small square, there was no trickery in her eyes. Black small square, there was no falseness in her voice. Black small square, she was different. We got to talking. She told me that she had also gone through a difficult divorce. I know what it's like to be taken advantage of and think it's love. I looked at her carefully. She understood me. Not pitying, not sympathizing, just understanding. When she suggested we have coffee, I didn't hesitate. I was ready to start a new chapter. No lies, no betrayal, no fear. But inside me, there was still a feeling that something was wrong. And that feeling didn't go away. An unexpected call. Late at night, my phone vibrated. The number was withheld. I hesitated. Then I picked up the phone. A small, weak voice came from the other end of the line. Oliver. I froze. It was her. Sarah. Her voice was completely different. Black small square, unsure. Black small square, not bossy. Black small square, broken. Please, we need to talk. I was silent for a long time. Then I said, you don't have the right to ask for anything anymore. I hung up, but the feeling that this wasn't the end, it was stronger now than ever. The calm before the storm. I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness for a long time. Black small square, her voice still echoed in my head. Black small square, her tone was weak, confused, not like the woman I knew. Black small square, what did she need? What did she want after everything she had done? But the main question that haunted me was, why did I feel like this wasn't the end yet? An unexpected morning visit. The next morning, as I was getting ready to go to the office, the doorbell rang. I opened and froze. There stood Sarah in front of me. Black small square, pale. Black small square with empty eyes. Black small square, she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. She wasn't the woman who had once been in charge. Now she was what I had made her, broken, cornered. She looked at me and whispered, Oliver, I didn't let her finish. Go away. I was about to close the door, but she fell to her knees. Please. I looked at her in surprise. She was crying. This wasn't like a game. This was real despair. Her confession. I stood there looking at the woman who a year ago thought she had everything under control. And now she was kneeling before me. Black small square, was humiliating for her. Black small square, but I felt no pity. Black small square, she chose this fate herself. What do you want, Sarah? She flinched. She raised her red eyes at me. I know I've done terrible things. I betrayed you. I tried to use you. I folded my arms. You finally got it. What's next? She sighed heavily. I have nowhere else to go. I'd been waiting for this moment. She knew no one wanted her anymore. Nick had dumped her. Her friends had turned away. She had no more money. I could have dumped her again without saying a word. But I wanted more. I wanted to see how far she would go. A deal with the devil. I slowly crouched down in front of her. Do you want me to help you? She nodded, trembling. Please, I don't want to live like this. I smiled. Okay, I have a proposition for you. She raised her head sharply. I'll make sure you never have to beg again. But for this, I leaned closer. You will do whatever I say. She froze. Black small square, she expected anger, revenge, hatred from me. Black small square, but she didn't expect this. I saw doubt in her eyes. What exactly do you want? I smiled even wider. You'll understand later. Agree or forget I exist. She clenched her hands. Black small square, her internal battle, lasted for several seconds. Black small square, she understood that this was humiliating. Black small square, but she also understood that she had no choice. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I agree. I nodded, satisfied. A wise choice. I stood up and looked at her. Come to the office tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And don't be late. She slowly rose from her knees. And what about tomorrow? I didn't answer. I just closed the door on her. The game was just beginning. The next day, 8 p.m., I was sitting in my office, going through some paperwork, when the door opened. Sarah was standing in the doorway. Black small square clean, but cheap clothes. Black small square nervous look. Black small square her hands were shaking. She looked weak, just the way I wanted her to. I slowly looked up. You're here. Okay. She swallowed and went inside. What now? I sat back calmly in my chair and crossed my arms. I'm going to tell you the rules now. And you either agree or you can leave right now. She nodded. She had nowhere else to go. And she knew it. My terms. I got up and went to window. Black small square, I wasn't going to just give her the money. Black small square, I wasn't going to just forgive her. Black small square, I was going to use her. I slowly turned to her. First, you're going to work for me. She flinched. What? I held up a hand to silence her. Second, you're going to have no choice. If I say something, you do it. No questions asked. No objections. She blinked in confusion. So, you want to make me your secretary? I smiled. No, Sarah, not a secretary. I took a step toward her. I want to make you what you've never been, a person who works, not a parasite on other people's money. I could see her clenching her fists. She hated it. Black small square, she hated obeying. Black small square, she hated being dependent on me. Black small square, she hated that I had power over her. But she knew one thing. She was no longer in control of the game. The first test. Okay, Sarah, I'll give you a chance. I took a stack of papers from the safe and laid them on the table. You'll come to my office tomorrow at 8 in the morning and complete this assignment. If you fail, you'll never get any help from me again. She picked up the papers, started reading, and turned white. But it's a real estate contract. I don't know anything about this. I shrugged. I'm not interested in this. Find out. I could see her eyes burning with rage. Black small square, she wanted to say something nasty. Black small square, she wanted to call me names. Black small square, but she couldn't. She was dependent on me. She exhaled. Okay, I'll do it. I smiled. Oh, I don't doubt it. She clutched the papers in her hands and slowly walked out of the office. When the door closed, I sat down in my chair and laughed. Now she was playing by my rules. And I hadn't even begun to enjoy it yet. The morning after the deal, I was sitting in my office, reviewing the morning reports, when the door opened. Sarah was 15 minutes late. Black small square red eyes. She must have been awake all night. Black small square documents in hand. So she had at least tried to figure it out. Black small square nervous look. She knew that every mistake she made would have consequences now. I gave her a cold look. You're late. She tensed. Sorry I got caught on the subway. I calmly set my coffee cup down on the table. Rule 1, I don't need excuses. You have to be here at 8, not when it's convenient for you. She pursed her lips but said nothing. I was savoring this moment. Black small square she used to dictate the terms. Black small square she used to choose what to do and what not to do. Black small square, and now she had no choice. I held out my hand. Show me what you prepared. She put the papers down on the table. I began to read. Her first failure. After a few minutes, I put the papers down and looked at her. Black small square errors on every page. Black small square incorrectly calculated coefficients. Black small square complete misunderstanding of terminology. I picked up one sheet and tore it in half. Sarah flinched. I picked up another and did the same thing. Black small square, her hands clenched into fists. Black small square, her eyes gleamed with humiliation. Black small square, but she was silent. I looked up. You didn't even try to do it right. She took a sharp breath. I tried. I slammed my palm down on the table. You didn't try. She flinched. I slowly stood up. You're used to getting everything on a plate. Men have always done all the dirty work for you. But you know what? It doesn't work anymore. I leaned closer. You want to survive? Start working. Her lips trembled. She hated me at that moment, but she knew I was her only chance. Humiliation in front of others. We have an important meeting today. You'll be there. She blinked. Me? But I cut her off. You'll listen and learn. If you say even one more word, you'll never get anything from me again. She swallowed her resentment and nodded. Black small square for the first time in her life. She was at the level of an intern. Black small square for the first time in her life. She was out of control. Black small square, and I could see how it hurt her. Meeting with business partners. When we entered the conference room, all eyes were on her. Black small square, the people who had looked at her as Lady Grace a year earlier, now saw her as nothing. Black small square, they knew about her betrayal. Black small square, they knew she had lost everything. One of the partners, Mr. Collins, smiled and leaned over to me. Oliver, what is she doing here? I replied calmly, learning to work. Everyone laughed. I looked over at Sarah. She sat with her eyes downcast, her hands clasped under the table. Her back was tense. She was no longer the queen of the party. She was a worthless person, sitting among those who had once considered her an equal, and I was enjoying the moment, the final blow to her pride. After the meeting, I detained her. Black small square, she looked devastated. Black small square, her eyes were shining with shame. Black small square, she wanted to fall into the ground. I sat down at the table and looked at her. How does it feel? She didn't answer. I raised my eyebrows. I asked a question. She looked at me and whispered softly, humiliating. I smiled. Get used to it. This is just the beginning. She gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do, because now she belonged to me. The morning after the meeting, Sarah arrived on time. She was no longer late. She was no longer arguing. She was no longer arrogant. She swallowed her pride. I was sitting at my desk, looking through documents when she walked into the office. Black small square, no makeup. Black small square in a simple, cheap dress. Black small square, without the usual scent of perfume. I looked up. It's good that you're on time. Sit down. She sat down without saying a word. I knew that yesterday had been a shock to her, but she had no idea what I had in store for her next. New tasks. I opened my laptop and looked at her. You need to get used to working. So today I'm going to give you more responsibility. She nodded. I smiled. You won't be working in an office. She raised her head in surprise. What? I opened a file and placed a printout in front of her. I'm sending you to one of our facilities. You'll be working with documents right on site. She stared at the papers. But this is a construction site. I nodded slowly. Yes, you'll be an intern there. She turned pale. Black small square construction site. Black small square workers in dirty clothes. Black small square physical work. She had never imagined herself in such a role. I saw her trying to find the words to refuse. But she knew she couldn't refuse. She swallowed the humiliation and nodded slowly. Okay, when do we start? I smiled contentedly. In an hour. The driver will take you. Don't be late. Sarah at the construction site. A further decline. When she arrived at the site, she was met by the foreman. Black Small Square, a strong man in his 50s who supervised dozens of workers. Black Small Square, he didn't need ladies and expensive dresses. Black Small Square, he saw her as just another employee. He looked her up and down and laughed. Is that her? The same Mrs. Grace? His subordinates laughed too. Black Small Square, yesterday, she was part of the elite. Black Small Square, and today she was standing here, amid cement, dust, and noise. She lowered her head and clenched her fists. What should I do? The foreman spat and handed her a tablet. Documents, material accounting. Everything must be written down clearly and without errors. If something is wrong, you'll redo it. She swallowed her pride. I understand. For the first time in her life, she had to work like a normal person. And that was just the beginning of her new hell. Her first day at the bottom. Sarah spent the day on the site, trying to do her job. Black Small Square, she didn't know how to fill out the paperwork correctly. Black Small Square, she made mistakes, and she was forced to redo everything. Black Small Square, she was no longer Lady Grace. She was just another employee now. The workers mocked her. Black Small Square. Hey, can you bring me some coffee, Miss Grace? Black Small Square, you're not used to the dust, are you? Black Small Square, watch out. Don't ruin your manicure. She was silent. She knew she couldn't answer, because this was her new life. When she returned to the office that evening, I looked at her and smiled. Black Small Square, her hands were dirty. Black Small Square, her eyes were red. Black Small Square, she looked exhausted. I slowly stood up. So, how's work? She gritted her teeth. Terrible. I laughed. Get used to it. You'll go there tomorrow, too. She didn't say anything. She knew she couldn't refuse. I had won again, but I hadn't even begun to really enjoy it yet. The next morning, she no longer resists. When Sarah walked into the office the next morning, I noticed a change right away. Black Small Square, she no longer argued. Black Small Square, she no longer asked, why do I have to do this? Black Small Square, she simply followed orders. I'd seen it many times. A broken person. But I didn't care. I wanted to finish her off. She betrayed me, trampled our family, wanted to destroy me, and now I'm not going to give her a chance to recover. I raised my head and said, you have a new assignment today. She slowly looked up. What this time? I threw the task list on the table. You'll be responsible for cleaning up the files in the archives. She blinked. Are you serious? I leaned forward. Do you want to work or go back to that cheap motel where even the mice despise you? She gritted her teeth. I could see the hatred still simmering inside her, but it didn't matter. She took the papers and left silently. Humiliation in the archives. Another level of degradation. The archives were a dark, dusty place where only interns or those the company didn't value worked. Now she was among them. She translated old documents, worked with files that no one had opened in decades. The former Lady Grace was now just an office cleaner. Black Small Square employees walked by and didn't notice her. Black Small Square some gave her mocking looks, but no one spoke to her. Black Small Square, she was a nobody. It was the perfect punishment. She no longer had any power. She no longer had status. She was just another employee who was paid a pittance because she was no longer worth anything. Her first breakdown. After a few hours of work, she couldn't take it anymore. She burst into my office, her eyes filled with rage. Black Small Square, she was shaking with anger. Black Small Square, her hands were clenched into fists. Black Small Square, she couldn't keep quiet any longer. I can't take this. I raised my head and looked at her calmly. What happened, Sarah? Is something wrong? She gritted her teeth. I can't live like this. You destroyed me. You made me a nobody. I smiled. No, Sarah, you did it. She sighed sharply. I made a mistake, but you got yours. Enough. I leaned forward. Do you think you can dictate terms to me? Do you think you have the right to tell me what to do? She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. I could just kick you out now. Is that what you want? She fell silent. I could see the fear in her eyes. She knew she had nothing else to do. I stood up slowly. Get back to work. Or you'll be out on the street tomorrow. She stared at me for a second longer, and then she slowly lowered her head and walked out. She was destroyed. But I wasn't done yet. She's not fighting anymore. Or is she just pretending to be? The next day, Sarah wasn't late. She came to the office in silence, picked up her assignments, and went to the archives. Black small square, no objections. Black small square, no conversation. Black small square, no anger in her eyes. I watched her. Had she finally broken down? Or was she just waiting for the right moment to strike back? I didn't believe Sarah had simply accepted her fate. She was cunning. But this time she was playing a game in which she no longer had any power. Tess, had she really changed? At lunchtime, I called her into my office. Black small square, she entered quietly. Black small square, she didn't sit down until I let her. Black small square, she didn't argue when I asked the first question. How's work? She lowered her eyes. I do whatever needs to be done. I looked at her mockingly. You're not offended anymore that you've been demoted to the level of an office shadow? She exhaled slowly. It's better than nothing. I didn't believe her. Something in her voice was untrue. I knew Sarah too well. She was a master of manipulation, and now I could tell she was up to something. But what exactly? An unexpected call from James. While I was thinking, my phone vibrated. I glanced at the screen. James Blake, my private investigator. I picked up the phone. What happened? James spoke softly, but his voice was serious. Oliver, I think your ex-wife is playing a double game. I tensed. Speak. James paused. She was meeting someone late last night, at a cheap bar outside of town. I gritted my teeth. With whom? James exhaled. With Nick Weston. Her secret meeting. What are they planning? I couldn't believe my ears. Black small square Nick had left her months ago. Black small square, he had turned his back on her when she was no longer needed. Black small square, what the hell was he doing with her now? I froze. I knew. They were up to something. Maybe she wanted to use him to get out of my control. Maybe they were looking for a way to frame me. Or maybe she was going to do something even worse. My game wasn't over yet. I hadn't shown that I knew the truth. I looked at Sarah, who was sitting in front of me. Black small square, she looked obedient. Black small square, she pretended not to fight anymore. Black small square, but I knew it was a trap. I leaned forward again and said, Tomorrow you will work with me directly. I want to see how much you have changed. She nodded slowly. Okay, I am ready. I smiled. Oh, I will make sure of that. But before that, I will find out what they are up to. And when she makes her move, I will strike first. She thinks I don't know. The next day, Sarah showed up at the office right on time. Black small square calm expression. Black small square submissive voice. Black small square no mention of Nick, no hint of their meeting. I knew she was playing a role. I knew she was up to something. But she didn't even realize that I was already in control. I decided to play along with her. I gave her a few new tasks. She agreed enthusiastically. Black small square, I'll do whatever it takes. Black small square, I'm not the same anymore. Black small square, I just want to work properly. Fake, pure fake. I looked at her and smiled, because I already knew that tonight I would find out the whole truth. Surveillance. Who is she really? I asked James to follow her again. As soon as Sarah left the office, he reported. Red circle, she went to another meeting. Same bar. Red circle, Weston is already there. I knew it. Black small square, she wasn't just meeting him. Black small square, she was planning something. Black small square, she thought I wasn't following her anymore. She made a fatal mistake. The conversation that changed everything. James recorded their conversation. When I got the audio file and played it, their voices came through the speakers. Black small square, Sarah spoke softly, quickly. Black small square, Nick sounded irritated. Red circle, Sarah, you have to help me. I can't be under his control anymore. Red circle, Nick, you went to this yourself. What do you want me to do? Red circle Sarah. I want to make him pay. I want my money back, my reputation, everything he took from me. Red circle Nick. How are you going to do that? Red circle Sarah. He trusts me. I can find something that will destroy his business. Something that will make him look bad. Red circle Nick. Do you really think you can beat Oliver? Red circle Sarah. I know I can. He thinks he has me under control, but I can still play this game. I froze. She hadn't learned anything yet. She hadn't realized that I had outplayed her yet. Did she really think she could destroy me? I smiled slowly. This was even better than I expected. The final trap. I would lure her into a game where she would lose. I decided to give her one last chance, but not so that she would win, and to make her fall so deep that she would never get out again. The next morning, I called her into my office again. Black small square, I pretended not to know anything. Black small square, I was as calm as ever. Black small square, I created the illusion for her that everything was under control. I gave her a new project, access to part of the financial statements. I wanted to see what she would do. I gave her the bait, and if she took the bait, she would go to the bottom. I would watch her destroy herself with her own hands. She thinks she's winning. I know she's already lost. Sarah got access to the financial records. Black small square, she thought this was her chance to find something incriminating about me. Black small square, she thought she could use this data to destroy me. Black small square, she didn't know that I had specifically given her the very documents that would lead to her ultimate downfall. I had given her fake files. Documents that looked like they contained serious financial fraud. Documents that she could try to use against me. Documents that were a straight-up trap. Step 1. She makes a move. Sarah got the files this morning. By lunchtime, she had met with Nick. Red circle James reported. Black small square, she gave him copies of the documents. Black small square, they discussed how to use it against me. Black small square, she laughed, sure that she was finally getting her revenge. I sat in my office listening to the audio recording of their conversation. Red circle Sarah. If we do it right, his company will be under investigation. Red circle Nick. Are you sure these documents are real? Red circle Sarah. I saw them myself. They're the originals. Red circle Nick. If this works, we'll not only destroy him, we'll get the money too. I hit the stop button and smiled slowly. Black small square, she got caught. Black small square, she did exactly what I expected. Black small square, she betrayed me for the second time. And now this will be her last mistake. Step 2, I set her up. I prepared a formal legal request to the police. Black small square, I reported that one of my employees was trying to illegally obtain the company's financial information. Black small square, I handed over copies of all the files, along with the recordings of her conversation. Black small square, I labeled her actions as corporate fraud. The next day, the police met her right in the office. Black small square, the employees whispered and stared at her. Black small square security was standing by the door, so she couldn't escape. Black small square, Sarah was looking at me, her eyes filled with terror. Oliver, what's going on? I slowly stood up and looked at her without any emotion. Sarah, you're under arrest for attempted corporate fraud and unlawful disclosure of financial information. Her face went white. What? This is some kind of mistake. I shrugged. Really? The audio recordings of you and Nick say otherwise. She gasped. Black small square, she knew I knew everything. Black small square, she knew I had outsmarted her. Black small square, she knew this was the end. When the police put handcuffs on her, she broke down. You can't do this, Oliver. You got me into this shit. You made me. I just smiled. I didn't make you do anything, Sarah. You made your own choice. She struggled, but the police were already leading her to the exit. The last time she looked at me, I saw a real fear in her eyes. She knew she wasn't going to get out this time. That was the end for her. For the first time, she realized that she had lost. The next morning, Sarah was in a pretrial detention cell. Black small square, no luxury. Black small square, no expensive suits. Black small square, no power. Just a pale face, disheveled hair, and eyes full of panic. I didn't show up at court right away. I waited for her to fully realize that she was now a criminal. Black small square, she was no longer Lady Grace. Black small square, she could no longer manipulate people. Black small square, she was just another defendant brought in handcuffs. The court, she was still trying to justify herself. When the hearing began, her lawyer tried to convince the court that it had been a mistake. Black small square, that she didn't know what she was doing. Black small square, that she was forced by circumstances. Black small square, that she was simply looking for a way to survive. I looked at her with contempt. Even now, instead of admitting her guilt, she was trying to play the victim. No remorse, no responsibility. I stood up and said, "Your Honor, I have all the evidence of her fraud. I have given the court the audio recordings of her conversations with Nick, the documents she stole, the evidence of her blackmail attempts." The judge looked at Sarah with a cold look. "Do you have anything to say in your defense, Mrs. Grace?" She was silent for a second, and then she did her worst again. "This is all my husband's revenge. He set me up on purpose. He wants to destroy me." I could barely hold back my laughter. Black small square, did she really think anyone would believe this? Black small square, did she really think she could shift the blame to me? Black small square, she hadn't yet realized that her words meant nothing anymore. The judge turned to her and handed down his sentence. Red circle the official charge. Black small square, corporate fraud. Black small square, insider trading. Black small square, attempted tampering with evidence. Red circle the sentence. Black small square, 3 years of probation. Black small square, $250,000 fine. Black small square, prohibition from working in the corporate sector. Her face paled even more. She would be under surveillance for 3 years. She had lost everything. Her house, her job, money, and now any chance of getting back into business world. I won. Her last shot. When the trial was over, she came up to me. Black small square, not aggressive. Black small square, not arrogant. Black small square, just devastated. She looked up at me and whispered, barely audible, "Oliver, do you really hate me?" I stared at her for a few seconds, and then she said, "No, Sarah, I just can't see you anymore." I turned and walked away. She was left standing there, alone, with her sentence. The world felt lighter without her. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of freedom. Black small square, no false excuses. Black small square, no suspicions. Black small square, no secret plans behind my back. Sarah was no longer in my life. She tried to destroy me, but in the end, she only destroyed herself. How did my life change? After the trial, my business went up. Black small square, the company flourished. Black small square, my partners began to trust me more. Black small square, I regained my reputation and strengthened my position in the business. Sarah could no longer hurt me. She was too busy surviving. Her life after the verdict. I was not interested in her, but the information still reached me. Black small square, she no longer had access to big money. Black small square, she tried to find a job, but was rejected everywhere. Black small square, her friends disappeared. She was left alone. The last I heard, she was working in a small shop, earning minimum wage. From the queen of life to an ordinary saleswoman. It was fair. She got what she deserved. A new beginning. A woman who is truly worth attention. One evening I was having dinner in a restaurant when Anna Carter approached me. Black small square, a stylish, confident woman. Black small square, no masks, no lies. Black small square, real. Oliver, long time no see. I smiled. "Hi, Anna. How are you?" She sat down opposite me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could simply enjoy the conversation. Black small square, no fakery. Black small square, no lies. Black small square, no fear of being used again. Maybe I'll learn to trust again. Maybe now life will truly begin anew. A woman who is not like Sarah. Anna was different. Black small square, not cunning. Black small square, not manipulative. Black small square, not a woman who plays dirty games. She was straightforward. "Oliver, are you still living in her shadow?" I took a sip of wine and looked at her. "Why do you think that?" She sighed. "Because you still think about her. You can control the situation, but you can't make yourself forget everything she did." I kept quiet. She was right. Sarah had taken away my faith in women. I didn't want to be the one who was betrayed again, but I also understood that I couldn't stay in the past forever. My first step into a new life, I started dating Anna. Black small square, no rush. No illusions. Black small square, just real communication, without lies. My children loved her. Lucas treated her like a family member. Sophie wasn't afraid of being betrayed, like her mother had been. I saw the difference between what was with Sarah and what is now. I didn't want to look back anymore. Sarah was the past, and now I had a chance at a real future. Her last appearance in my life. One day, as I was leaving a restaurant with Anna, I saw her. Sarah was standing on the other side of the street. Black small square and old jacket. Black small square eyes that no longer burned with confidence. Black small square woman who would never return to the life she had destroyed. She looked at me, then at Anna, and I saw black small square, no anger. Black small square, no anger. Black small square, just emptiness. She finally understood that I had forgotten her, that I no longer thought about her, that my life was moving forward. I took Anna's hand and walked on, without looking back. I don't look back anymore. It's been 6 months since Sarah disappeared from my life for good. Black small square, no calls. Black small square, no attempts at manipulation. Black small square, no attempts by her to come back. I didn't think about her anymore. For the first time in a long time, I lived for myself. What happened to her? I didn't look for information about her. But the world is small. One day, James sent me a short message. Red circle, she left town. For the first time in all this time, not because of the court, not because of problems, but because she decided to do it herself. I looked at this message and felt nothing. Black small square, no joy. Black small square, no anger. Black small square, no regret. She made her choice a long time ago, and this choice led her to her complete downfall. I didn't feel any pleasure from it, because she no longer had any meaning in my life. I found true happiness. Anna became something I didn't expect. Black small square person who doesn't play games. Black small square person you can trust. Black small square person who doesn't want to destroy, but wants to build. I was no longer afraid of love. I no longer allowed myself to doubt every word the woman next to me said, because now I knew the difference between true love and illusion. And for the first time in a long time, I was happy. The end of the story. I won. Black small square not because I destroyed Sarah. Black small square not because I made her pay for everything. Black small square, but because I stopped thinking about the past. Revenge was sweet, but true victory is simply moving forward, because now I know the main lesson of all this. True revenge is being happy, and I did it. Please subscribe to our channel Stellar Stories. We have new amazing stories coming out every day. Thank you.